What up, everybody? Doug Cartwright here, host of the Alchemy Podcast. I've got a phenomenal guest today, a friend, someone I worked with for a long time, and one of the up-and-coming stars in the door-to-door space, top rep, growing your business like crazy. Alek Vaughan, welcome to the pod, brother.
Dude, I'm stoked to be here. This is honestly so surreal to be here. I would never have thought that I'd be in a situation like this.
What do you mean?
Dude, I remember when I came into the industry, I didn't even know any of this personal development or anything along the lines of that. I just knew that door to door was a great way to make money. And I did pest control for a long 2 or 3 years, and then I switched over to Vivint. That's where I got introduced to, Doug Vivint Cartwright. And I remember all these top performers were in Alchemy, right? Like Jason Shaw, Bella Estevez, Chase Hermanson, all these guys. And I was like, that's those guys are cool, they're in a personal development thing. And you came and spoke to the team, and I was like,
that was out in California, right?
Yeah. And I was like, that is, I could never put my thumb on what just kept me around, but it's that. It was the personal development. And I was like, that's cool. And so instantly when you came and talked, I was like, oh yeah, I want to join. And now here we are 2 years later.
Yeah, you've been a member for 2 years now.
Yeah. Well, I think it's 3 now.
Yeah, well, 2.5, technically, yeah, about 2.5. Because it was 2 summers ago.
Yeah. And I'm now here I am on a podcast. So I'm it's kind of cool.
Yeah. So I'm curious from your journey, because I actually don't know this personally. Remind me how old you are right now?
So I'm 22.
22. And you got into the industry when you were what, 18?
I was 18, but my summer's my birthday is in the summer.
Yeah.
And so I joined when I was 18, but when I finished my first summer, I was 19.
And what was your introduction into the industry? How'd you get recruited?
Well, so it's not like your traditional recruiting story. It's actually kind of funny. Before this, I was full blown hippie.
What do you mean?
When I say that, I had hair down to here.
No way.
All the way, locks, beautiful, long, luscious hair. I actually worked at a crystal store,
no
legit.
way.
Yeah. So I was always into the whatever you want to call
vibe.
it. Yeah,
the
it's the vibe, right?
Yeah.
Catching the energy. I was always into that.
Where did you grow up?
So I grew up, I was born in American Fork, Utah, but mostly raised in Kearns. And then when I started going to middle school, we moved to Draper.
Okay.
And then I just moved out of Draper, bought my first place in American Fork.
Let's go.
So it's kind of another one of those surreal moments where I was born in American Fork, just bought my first house in American Fork. I'm it's kind of cool. But yeah, and so I was always into the energies or whatever.
Yeah.
And my buddy went out and he made 12 grand in 55 days. And I was like, wow. I was like, that's life-changing
So much money when you're that age.
Yeah. I was like, dude, if I had
life.
12 grand, I'd be at the skate park every day.
Yeah.
And then I was like, it was kind of like the movie Wolf of Wall Street. I was like, I quit my job. I work for you.
So that's literally what happened.
Yeah.
So he got home.
Yep.
Sold 55 days.
Yep.
Made 12K.
Yep.
He was like, yo, Alek, check this out.
Yeah, and it wasn't even, he didn't even show me the money in his bank account. He just did the math on a calculator.
Yeah.
He's like, I did this much amount in revenue because it was back in the pest control days. And he's like, and this is my commission. This is how much I'm supposed to make. And I was like, no way. And so I was like, I'm in. I was like, I'm in. And so I kind of fully dove into it. And I kind of have this obsessive personality where when I find something that I really like it.
Go all in.
Yeah, and so I went all in. And so I remember I went in for a recruiting meeting, right? And I don't look like the typical door-to-door salesman.
You're the hippie, bro.
Yeah, I had hair down to here. Yeah. I was shy, nervous, I didn't really all I knew was was crystals. And so it wasn't your typical meeting or whatnot. And I remember I went to one of the trainings and they're in the first 7 seconds, that's your impression or whatever. And I remember looking in the mirror and I'm I got hair down to here and I'm it's time to chop it. And so I just chopped the hair and it was gone. And I went all in and finished that summer, and I was top rookie in the office.
Where'd you guys go?
We were in Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yeah.
Selling pest control.
And what was your first summer like? Obviously, I mean, being kind of not being into that space, kind of being like at the crystal shop, longer hair, and then you get thrown out into like such an abrasive job as door to door that's like kind of aggressive around a different type of community of guys who are a little bit more masculine and a little bit more intense.
Yeah.
What was that smooth for you to transition, or was it kind of like a slap in the face, or what was like your first year like?
I would say it was anything but smooth. I mean, those guys that have done door to door, they know that like it's really hard. And I would say probably to this day, like it's one of, if not the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. And so I remember I came out and I did not fit in on the team at all.
What do you mean?
The team was just full of like members of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I was not a member.
Yeah.
And so it was weird to be like in a different environment.
Sure.
They were all really, really cool, heavy hitters. We had some of the best people in the industry working on our team, which was also really cool to learn with. And I just remember thinking like, wow, like this is like, it was when you ask like how the change was, I went out there with two of my best friends, and they knocked for 2 days, and they were like, oh, this is way too hard. And then they left.
So they bounced after 2 days.
2 days. Yeah.
And did you go out with anyone else, or was it you three?
It was just us three.
So your two homies are gone.
Gone. Yeah.
In 48 hours.
Yep.
Wow.
Less than that, because it was a 24-hour drive to get to Cincinnati. And then we got there, and then we went to bed, and then we woke up, and then we knocked. And then the next day they packed up and they left.
That fast.
That fast. Yeah. And so it was just me, my best friend Mason Bear, and we were just rolling out there.
So what was the conversations like with you and Mason when your friends bounced? Were you like, hey, we're committing to this thing all the way in, or was like, hey, let's feel it out, or what was the?
I was fully committed.
Yeah.
I was
there was
like,
nothing that was sending you home.
I mean, I'd like to say that.
Yeah.
But when my two buddies came into my room, I remember it. They're like, hey, if we were to leave, like, would you come with us? And I was like, what? No. It's like, what are you guys talking about? And they were like, we're heading out. And I was like, whoa.
Yeah.
You know, and Mason, my best friend, he wasn't like my roommate. And so I just remember thinking like, oh man, like, you know, those feelings came up, and I was like, I'm going to be rooming with people I've never met. Like I'm like, you know, I was nervous, and I was like, my best friends are going to leave me. And I was like, and so it was a super growth year for sure. Just because, you know, it's your first time moving away, like 18 years old, like you don't know what you're doing.
So this was your first time living out of your house.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It was first time ever moving out anything.
To beautiful Cincinnati, Ohio.
Yep. My mom sent me with some ramen and some mac and cheese and some peanut butter and some jelly, and she was like, you know, like let the bird fly. And I'm super, super grateful for that. Like, I think that summer and the way that the pest control model is set up as well, it keeps you very poor over the summer, because at least what I was on is I made like $50 up front every time I sold a deal. Yeah. And so over the entire summer, I made like $8,000. And so
up front.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And so I remember like every day, like I didn't have money to go like out to eat.
You were
like,
living frugal.
Yeah. And so I remember everyone would go out and they're like, oh, we're going to this lunch spot. And for 111 days, I had a peanut butter and jelly sandwich and Cheez-Its. And like that was it. That was the motto. I was like, I don't have the money to like go out and buy, you know, lunches every day.
Yeah. So I want to take a step back there. So, you know, you have two friends go home, and in the door-to-door spouse, that can actually like ruin someone, a rookie. Like if my friends are going home, I'm going to go with them. Right. So you decided to stick it out. You and Mason, like, all right, we're going to figure this thing out. Did sales come easy for you in the beginning, or was there a moment when like things started to click? Like how smooth did you transition into success?
I think that's a great question, because it leads me right into like what I feel like what a lot of people could like benefit from this podcast for is like, no, it was not an easy transition. It was not anything like that. I remember that my first day knocking, I didn't get anything, right? It was funny. I had an Apple Watch at the time, and my average heart rate for the 8 hours that I was out there knocking doors was like 130,
it's
140, something like that.
Beaten.
Like I was so nervous the whole day. I remember I still have the recording of like my first ever door approach, and I'm just it doesn't even make sense. The customer's like, what are you talking about? And I just was like, yeah, so do you want to buy pest control or no? And then they were like, no. And I was like, okay, have a good day. And I just left. And I remember I was so anxious the whole day. And I didn't have any of the strategies or anything like that I do now that like deal with anxiety. Yeah. So it just was like, go for it. But it took me, I remember that first day I didn't sell one, but the buddy that went home the second day, he sold one his first day.
He sold and still went home.
Yeah. Wow. And so I remember thinking like, dude, like, what am I doing? Like we were on the same trainings, we're on the same thing. Like how did he sell it? Like I did it. And I remember that was frustrating. And it actually took me 3 days to sell my first one. So I didn't sell anything for 3 days. And in pest control, they're like you're supposed to be selling like 2 to 3 of these things like every day. Yeah. And it took me a while to sell one, and it was a little bit harder for me for sure.
Yeah. So then sales start picking up.
Yep.
Right. You make $8,000 up front. You're living really frugal.
Yeah.
When you got home from that summer, were you like, oh, that was a great experience, I'm done? Or were you pretty like, okay, I want to go for it here?
Yeah. So I was making probably like less than 10 grand at the crystal store, like a year.
Yeah.
And so when I went out there and I finished the summer at like $118,000 in revenue with like, that's like $30,000 in commission.
Yeah.
And it was life-changing.
Yeah.
Life-changing.
And in what ways did your life change?
Dude, I remember like I'd go up to my mom and I'd be like, Mom, like, like let's go on like a date. Like I got you. Like let me take care of you. Like I just got like a back end check. I'm like, let's go to Taco Bell. Something nice or something. And it was, I finally felt like free. Like I could do the things that I wanted to do. I could pay for my buddies' meals, like while these guys are working, like I'm, I have like, and when you're 18, 19 living at home, like you have zero expenses. So like, it was just 30 grand to just have fun. And so that was my first summer, and it was good, but I always saw it as like a means to an end. I always was like, oh, I'm just going to move on. Like, I'm just going to do this to get money, and then I'll move on to bigger and better things.
And was it like the mindset of like, I'll do this while I'm in school? Or were you kind of just floating around, more of like, we'll do this until it doesn't work anymore? Yeah, more or less like, I'm just going to float around and do this till it doesn't work anymore. Yeah. Which kind of leads me into like my second year is I was like, yeah, like, I had a good experience. Like I'm going to do it again. And were you fully, like right when you got home your first year, were you fully committed to year two, or did it take a minute to kind of recommit? Yeah. Yeah. The business model that the pest control company had was super brilliant. Yeah. Where as soon as you end the summer, they take you on an extravagant trip and they sign you on that trip. Yeah. And so like from business model, that's really, really good. Yeah. And so, 18 years old, I just made 30 grand. I'm in Hawaii with, all of these people. Yeah. And they're like, yeah, like you ready for next year? And I was like, oh, I didn't really think about doing next year. But I'm like, yeah, why not? I'm like, let's do it. And so I did that, and I went out the next year, and I was like, hey, I'm really going to double down. And like the golden goose, if you will, or like what I was like really hoping for was 6 figures. Mm-hmm. Like I remember thinking like, if I could make like 6 figures, like I'm rich. Yeah. Like I'm like, that's like the richest man in the world. And so that was the goal. And so I got super, super analytical, right? Like you talk about state strategy story. I had my strategy down to the penny. Locked in. Down to the penny, yeah. I had, hey, I'm out here for this many days, this many knocking days, this many hours. This is how much sales I need to get. I need to sell at this contract value, which gets me this personal commission, which gets boom, 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 boom. Like so. It was all mapped out. It was so mapped out. Right, and as I'm sure you can guess, like did it go to plan? Yeah, probably not. But it was still a good summer. My goal was to make 6 figures, and on paper, I earned it. And so I sold $200,000 in revenue, and I had like a 50% commission, which was supposed to get me, like $100,000. But that's just not the way that industry like really works, because on the spreadsheet it looks good, but what actually hits your bank account isn't that much. And so I remember feeling really jaded. And so I actually left the industry. How much did you get paid out on that? 70. So they shorted you about 30K. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which like, I mean, cancellations maybe, like you just never know like what the back end really looks like. I felt jaded because that's what I was expecting, because I did like, I had all my numbers and strategy down to like a T. It's funny that you more than 2x your income and you were jaded. It's just funny how our mind works. But anyways, I get it.
It's because expectations, like if you have your expectations, I mean, name one 20-year-old that's going to be upset making 70 grand a year, right? Me, I was upset.
The only one.
Yeah. I'm like, who's doing that? And so I tried every other sales job on the planet. I went to Park City, did some startups, worked for big companies. So
you were done.
Yeah.
After that, there's like door-to-door career is over.
Yeah. I was like, all right, like that's it.
Yeah.
That second summer I also recruited like 4 to 5 people, something like that. Every single one of them got on the first week.
Wow.
So like I was also kind of done with like the recruiting thing. I'm like, okay, like
not working.
Yeah, exactly. And so that's how I got introduced to Vivint, right? And that's how I got introduced to you is that first summer.
So what got you back in? Because you said you're checking out other jobs.
Yep. So I was checking out other jobs and I was making like decent money, but what I realized is that I love freedom.
Yeah.
Right. Like, and these jobs, I was working 12 months out of the year, or supposedly I was supposed to, but I left because I got too upset first. Right. Where I was working 12 months out of the year and making the same that I would in a summer. And I was like, that just doesn't make sense for me.
Yeah.
And so I was like, you know what? Like, I guess I'm going to go back to pest control. Like, it wasn't that bad. But that same friend that recruited me to do pest control got recruited by one of the other guys you had on the podcast, Jake Robles.
Mm-hmm.
And Jake was like, hey, we're all switching to Vivint. Like, you should check it out. And so Mason went and met with Jake, and I was like, all right, like, I trust my best friend's judgment. Like, he's the one that got me into.
What sold you on it? I'm curious.
Nothing sold me. I actually wasn't sold on Vivint.
Yeah.
I really wasn't. I was gonna go back to do pest control, but simply just because he was my best friend.
Mason was doing it. You were in. Yeah.
Yep. And so he was like, come on a blitz. And I'm like, out of just like the like, just because he's my buddy, I was like, whatever. Like, I'll go try blitz. That way I can tell him like, hey dude, like it's not for me. I'm gonna go do pest control. And I went out on that blitz.
Where'd you guys go?
We were in Bakersfield, California.
Oh yeah, you're guaranteed getting money there.
the land of milk and honey.
That place always produces.
Yeah, it's a good place. And I went out there and I shadowed for 2 days, and then my first day I sold 3.
You sold 3 your first day?
But it gets better because I was not attached to the results at all. I think that's why I succeeded so well, because I remember like Mason. I get to his house in St. George and he was like, hey, like, are you ready for the blitz? And I'm like, no. I'm like, I don't have the pitch memorized. I didn't have anything because I was just so against it. And I remember he had his pitch down and I was like, dude, like, whatever, like, we're going to go to pest control. And so I remember after shadowing for 2 days, I was like, okay, I kind of learned the pitch. And then I finally got it from Mason and I had it in my notes. And that first day I was reading the pitch, I had my phone out reading it to the customer. Yeah. Right. Cause I wasn't not prepared. I didn't care. I was not bought in. I was like, I'm going to do pest control anyways. And then I sold 3. I didn't know how much I made. I didn't know anything. And I sat down and they were like, dude, this is how much you made today. And I was like, that's more than I made my best day in pest control. I was like, are you serious? And they're like, dead serious. I was like, oh, wow. And so that was the moment. Yeah. That was the moment where I was like, okay, I'm going to be at Vivint for the next 5 years. And so head down, I was like, Vivint for life. I'm like 5 years.
Kool-Aid.
Yeah. Bleeding orange. I mean, you cut this vein, it's orange. Yeah. And it's I'm year 2. I'm year 2 at Vivint, just finished up my second year.
So that when I met you 2 summers ago, that was your first year at Vivint.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah. I remember like thinking like, whoa, this team is really into like personal development.
Yeah.
And then they brought in an actual life coach to come speak with us. And I was like, oh, wow. It's like, And
that's when you joined Alchemy.
Yep. Yeah. Right on the spot.
Yeah. How was, let me ask this, transitioning doing two summers of pest? Cause there's, Alchemy isn't a Vivint thing. There's pest guys in here. There's alarm guys. There's solar guys. It's all
pest control is great.
It's right. What was your experience of the difference between selling Vivint and pest?
Lights out.
Yeah.
It was a lights out experience.
Yeah.
Me, my friends, what we say is friends don't let friends sell pest control.
Yeah.
Because now that we're out of the industry, we're like, the opportunity doesn't compete.
Yeah.
One of the great things that we talk about is Stephen R. Covey. He talks about the 7 habits of highly effective people. One of the ones in there is win-win or no deal.
Right.
And the biggest realization for me was coming over to Vivint, where everything was win-win or no deal. right? It's not like you're trying to sign sketchy like NDAs or like have weird marketing deals or like, hey, just because you're my buddy, you're going to get a higher commission percentage. Like there just wasn't any of that.
Yeah.
And it works for the customer too, where it's like you're not selling the same service at a different price.
Yeah.
You're selling, they get more, they pay more. And I was like, I could really get behind that. Like it just clicked for me really well. And so that's what the experience was like switching over, where I was like, I'll never look back. And if you have friends that sell pest control, I mean, hit me up.
Yeah.
We'll make it make sense, I promise.
Yeah.
But I mean, that's the experience that I'd say.
Yeah. And as far as your personal production, what did that look like year one?
Yeah, so that's kind of where it gets also a little bit crazy. Is my best year in pest control, I made 70, paid to the bank account.
Yeah.
My first year at Vivint, I made 147.
Yeah.
And I was like, that was another thing that just reaffirmed 5 years at Vivint for sure. I finally made six figures. I was like, I felt like I was him,
Sure.
I everything just worked. The people that I was with was amazing. And I mean, I just loved it from top to bottom.
Yeah. Yeah. So it sounds like you had a big year. And then just real quickly, recap us. Last year you were in Little Rock?
Yeah. Yeah. So
right? Now you're managing.
Yeah. This year or last year was really like my, I don't even know if you want to call it like breakout year, blow up year. I actually came to Vivint and I remember my manager was like, hey, you should recruit. And this was going into my fourth summer. They were like, hey, you should recruit. I was like, dude, I've recruited like 20 people.
Never figured it out.
And not a single one of them has made it past the first week. Actually, that's false. I had one guy my first summer at Vivint who finished the summer. And that was my first ever recruit. So my third year in the industry after recruiting 20 people, I finally had one person finish the summer. And he didn't even return. And so I was like, okay, like this recruiting thing is a scam.
Yeah.
And I remember they're like, you need to recruit, blah, 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 blah. And Jake threw out an incentive and he was like, hey, like get some free Travis Scotts if you can get like 10 meetings this week. And I was like, I don't have any pairs. Like, might as well just reach out. And ended up signing a bunch of people and signed a guy that was a phenomenal recruiter. And he just was an absolute stud and he basically blew up the business. Phenomenal recruiter. He didn't do too well in the summer, but phenomenal recruiter. And so he really blew up like my business, if you will. And that was what finished my fourth summer at Vivint, where it's like, I'm never looking back now.
Yeah.
Like,
huge summer, definitely up and coming. What's it like managing, new reps for the first time? Because obviously, especially as new reps, there's a lot of emotions that happened. Like, I mean, I know 2 summers ago, you had a very emotional summer.
Yeah.
Right? And talk to us about that and how you navigated that.
Whew. That summer was right up there with my rookie summer in difficulties. I guess we'll kind of just dive into it. But like for those people that don't know, they're listening to the podcast. That was my third summer and I had a girlfriend of 5 years. And in the middle of July, which is like, arguably one of the harder months, like as August is probably the hardest. And she broke up with me in the middle of the summer. And it was a bad place for me to be. And I wouldn't have it any other way. That's the honest truth. I remember like you helped me out so much, like Jake helped me out so much. And like, that was a pivotal moment in my life where like something that seemed so bad in the moment, something that seemed so horrible where I was like crying myself to sleep. I would literally get on the doors, I would knock, I would sell one, I would go cry, I would get on the doors again, and I go sell another. And I was like, what is the purpose of life? Like I was on the verge of just being done, laid in the middle of I-15, just not happy. And it was an amazing experience. Like all of that.
What are the
pain,
takeaways? I mean,
biggest takeaways I'd say is like it really built a lot of like emotional intelligence, right? Where like before I just felt things, and it was just like, I don't want to feel that anymore. Goodbye,
Suppress
and like
it.
It was just done. Like I would always just compensate that feeling with working harder, right? Where it's like, okay, like I feel kind of icky. I'm just going to get on the doors and just try and go work my way through it. Like that was always like my motto. Like, it's like, oh, like I'm anxious. I'm just going to get out of the car. I'm just going to go knock. It's just going to go away. And like, it worked, you know, for a little bit. And there were times where like, I mean, getting super vulnerable, like there were times where like I'm passed out in a pool, like crying.
Yeah.
And like, I have all my buddies that are like holding me and like, I'm just like a total mess.
Yeah.
And like, you have to go through that pain in order to like grow and develop as a human. Right. So it's like really door-to-door sales is just a vehicle for developing as a human, I feel like.
I always tell people that, like, listen, I love door-to-door because nothing will expose you and put you in a better opportunity for personal and human development than this job.
Yeah.
Because it will expose you.
Yeah.
And you can't hide from it.
And to kind of go back to the question of like, what was it like managing a lot of like New Year's? Because every single one of the reps that I brought out, which I brought out 18 this summer, and I had
That's a good amount.
Yeah.
That's a grip of dudes.
It was
gals.
It was fun. I had 8 of them finish, and of the 8, 3 of them were above 100, which is awesome. $500,000 in revenue for those people that don't really like know what that is.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of hitters. And like you were saying, this job exposes every little bit of like insecurity. I like to tell them, like I would tell my like new reps, I'm like, that's exactly what it's supposed to be like.
Yeah.
Like that's exactly how you're supposed to feel. Like you feel like you're stripped down, cold in the middle of the Atlantic, alone, just you and your insecurities.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's exactly what it's supposed to feel like. I'm like, that's exactly why you are making doctor money.
Yeah.
Is because you can deal with that. And it's like, and if you can't, come to me. I know because I've been through that of how to help you do that. And so personal development is huge for me. Like that's why the recruiting vision is so big. I think that's why a lot of us have so much success recruiting, is because we're not in it for the dollar signs, right? Like, I mean, it's going to sound so cliche or like whatever, but like one more recruit does not impact the money that I will make, right? It'll be fine either way. But if I can take that kid, develop that kid into somebody who doesn't know what they want to do with their life, like me, where like I came out of high school, didn't know what I wanted to do, and I have something like this where like I have the opportunity to leave a positive impact on the world, it's like that is what I'm recruiting for. Is it's like you can take this kid, like there was this guy that I recruited this year, his name's Brooks Hoffheim, and he came out 18 years old, knocked doors, flew back to Utah, graduated high school, came back out, made 6 figures.
Wow.
Same story as me, but was a prodigy.
Yeah.
I made nowhere near that my rookie year. And it's like taking that where he's like, dude, I didn't know what I wanted to do. Like I liked football, but I mean, I'm not going pro and I want to be rich, you know? And it's like now he has the ability to impact other people's lives. I impacted his life. And it's like, you're just leaving a positive change on the world. And like at the end of the day, that's all you want to do. Right? Because when you're dead, your money and like all this, it's like none of that matters. What matters is that like you, yourself, me, Alek Vaughan, I left people better than I found them. And I created a positive change and I made things way, way better than they were before. And it's like, that's where I get like my most fulfillment. That's when my heart feels like the most full, if you know what I'm saying.
Yeah, man, it's really inspiring to hear that. And I completely agree with you on a lot of those pieces of just like really focusing on impact and change. And with that being said, what were some of the, I mean, obviously going from kind of having 1 to 2 reps to last year having, you know, in charge of a whole office.
Yeah.
What's the difference for you, the difference in the job for you from being, hey, I got to go produce and now I'm in charge of a whole team? What was kind of the management lessons from last year?
Learn how to swim because you're going to be drowning.
Yeah.
That would be my biggest thing is it's like, if you would have told me at the start of the summer that I would be quote unquote, like co-managing like 4,000 accounts, which to put it in like other perspective is like $20 million in revenue, I'd be like, no, I'm not doing that. But the position that I got put into, I had to step up where like our team split into like 2 different teams almost. And it's like, I just had to do it. There was no plan
B. There was no other option.
It's you do it or you just 100% fail.
Yeah.
And it's like somebody had to do it. And so like I just did it. Like there's no right, there's no wrong, there's no nothing like that. Like I took guidance from everybody above me. Like I was reaching out to every single person that had ever done anything and asking them what I can do, right? And it's like that gave me the ability to learn so many things where it's like, I don't know how to run a correlation. Never ran a correlation in my entire life or like a morning meeting.
Right.
And I have to do it on Monday. And I'm like, what am I going to do? You know? And so it's like, you can't just get up there and just be like, all right, guys, like, let's go kill them, tigers. You know, like you have to provide value to these people. And like, I just remember just going to anybody and everybody and being like, bro, what do I do? Like, I honestly don't think that I'm that crazy successful or that crazy anything. I think all I am is a product of the people that I'm around. And I just take bits and pieces of everybody and just incorporate it. Like 90% of the time.
The best artists I know, I mean, the best leaders, everyone just takes the best ideas from everyone else. You know, we stand on the shoulders of giants is the phrase of just like, I think it's the most brilliant way to go about what you're doing, you know, in any business is like, who's done it world class, better than anyone else who's ever done it, and then just copy exactly what they do.
Yeah. 100%. I agree. I think like what I would do sometimes for correlation is I would literally be like, all right, like what did Doug talk about on Wednesday? I'm like, I'm going to go share that with my reps.
Yeah.
I'm like, and it's, I don't know, I guess that's really all I would say is just like what you said, like just take what you have from those around you that was successful, copy and paste it, put your little spice on it. And like, I mean, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. It's already there.
Yeah. You know, and then it's so cool because I can, not only it's cool to see your growth and development, but you can also feel it energetically. Like you're just the way you're moving through life right now. If you're very confident and upbeat and enthusiastic and, you know, really going for it.
Yeah. I talk fast.
Yeah. You know, not even that, just like an energetic, you know, you can just feel the good vibes coming from you. And I'm curious, you know, cause this is the Alchemy podcast. I'm curious, you know, you've been to multiple Alchemy events.
Yeah.
I think 4. You've been to
every single one that you put on since since I joined. You've been. I was there.
Yeah, I'm curious what your experience and what role Alchemy has played in your growth and development.
Dude, Alchemy's unreal. It's funny because like maybe you don't know like the full extent of like the impact that you have. Where it's like you have guys that they're like so inspired by alchemy that they create their own little version of like their own like alchemy where it's like, hey, like I see what Doug's doing, like I'm gonna do it for like my friends, where it's like maybe like, you know. And so I'd say the role that like alchemy played in my life is it's like it was a place where I felt comfortable that I could just get rid of all of the faces that you wear day to day, where it's like it was a place that I could go and be with other like-minded individuals, right? Like I love Matty Ice, Pony Boy, like those guys, like even though they're in different industries, different teams, it's a great time to just like set aside all of like the, you know, bashing or whatever you want to call it, the recruiting, and you guys can just come together and just like hang out with just like-minded individuals. Where like I really like you have like the mandate where like you turn your phones off and stuff, where like it just really makes you drop into who you're with. And I struggle a ton with being present. Like being present is probably one of the hardest things for me recently. Like I always feel like there's new like challenge, like I don't know, maybe I kind of gamify life where it's like there's always a new challenge, right? And like the goal is number one, you got to find the challenge, you got to find what you're dealing with, and then you got to find the answer. Right. And so like right now, like getting vulnerable, like my biggest thing is like being present, where it's like when I'm with a romantic partner, I'm thinking about work. When I'm at work, I'm thinking about a romantic partner. And it's like, why can I not just be where I am? And it's frustrating, but I mean, that's exactly how it's supposed to be. Like that's the new challenge. Now all I got to do is just go like conquer it. And I feel like that's what alchemy will like give you the tools to do. Where it's like you can reach out to anybody in there and they're all so willing to help. Where it's like you have, you know, an 18-year-old kid that's answering a question for like a 40-year-old, or, you know, like there's just so many different things where it's like there's so many different perspectives and everybody's just so down to like help each other out. Where I feel like if I were to like text in the Alchemy group chat, like, hey, who's got a place to stay at this location for these days? Like somebody would be like, yeah, for sure. Like hop on in.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's some rando that I've never met. And they're like, yeah, dude, come sleep in my childhood bed.
Yeah.
I'm like, bro, what?
Yeah.
Like, it's just a really cool community where like you can just put all the just BS aside. Like you can just put everything to the side and you can just hang out and be surrounded by like-minded individuals without having to worry about like more or less I don't know how to say it, but like
There's no motive.
yes, no motive.
There's no motive,
right?
yeah.
Like if somebody hits you up on Instagram and they're in the door-to-door space, they're like, oh, like you're like, okay, this guy's
There's a
gonna try and
motive. There's
recruit
trying
me.
to get me. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like somebody in Alchemy hits you up. It's like they just want to hang out.
Yeah.
Like they just want to chill. Like they want to hit a cold plunge with you. Like, and they're also like good people that are doing the right thing. Where it's not like you have like, hey, like let's come hang out and like just watch TV and just bum around. It's like, no, like let's go hike the mountains. Let's go, go to Moab and jump off a cliff. Some of these cool peak life experiences. It's like that's what it's about. So I mean, you've done a great job fostering it for sure.
Yeah, thanks. I think my whole intention really, the thing I love about Alchemy, actually my favorite piece of feedback I got on Alchemy it was actually Alchemy Fest 2, your first one, actually one went out in the desert.
Such a cool location.
Yeah, that one was great. And I was talking about it to someone and I said, hey, what's your favorite thing about Alchemy? Trying to get a testimonial. And they said, honestly, my favorite thing about Alchemy is that there's no totem pole, meaning I can show up. No one cares who I work for. No one's even really going to maybe ask, and no one's going to ask how much I sold.
Yeah.
Whereas like in our day to day in the industry, it's like, oh, that person sold 200 or that person sold 300 or I'm better than them and they're better than me. And like you work for this company and I work for this company. It's kind of like there's this tension.
Yeah.
And like, yeah, when I come to Alchemy, it's like no one cares and no one talks about it and no one's there's no motive to recruit. Like there's not even on the table.
And at the same time, everybody there has the same motive.
Yeah.
Where they're all just trying to get better.
Yeah.
Where it's like, if you were to go, like our company does like a trip at the end of the year, like every other company. And it's like the first thing, it's like, oh, hey, what's your name? It's like, oh, like I'm Alek. How many did you sell?
Yeah.
Right. But at like Alchemy, it's like, yo, like what's your name? It's like, cool.
Yeah.
It's like, what are you here for? Like, what are you trying to get out of this? You know? And it's a completely different switch that like is refreshing, where like people are just like naturally vulnerable at Alchemy.
Yeah.
Like it's just, maybe it's a presence that you put off. Maybe, I don't know. It's just people, it's like, you're more likely to cry if you're with Doug.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah. And I mean, if you really break it down, I mean, Alchemy, it's a personal development platform.
Yeah.
Designed for people who are in a peak performance job.
Yeah.
Whether that be door to door, owning their own business, whatever. And, and so it's really great to have you in the fam, man. And you bring a great energy, and we've had a lot of fun memories. And really, dude, I'm just wanted to bring you on because I'm just really inspired from your growth and like from when I first met you 2.5 years ago to where you are today. Like you're a totally different human.
It's
insane.
Yeah, it's definitely weird because it's like you go from, and like going back to like when I'm like, oh, like it's surreal that I'm here. It's like more not like imposter syndrome, but kind of like imposter syndrome where you're like I don't really feel like I'm like worthy enough to be like on a podcast, where it's like. But
we'll save that topic for our next one-on-one call.
Yeah, definitely. But it's like it's important to like provide like the value that you can, where it's like maybe you can share some tactical sales tips or how to recruit or like the mindset behind like door to door or managing or something like that. And it's like that's why I was like, you hit me up and I'm like, absolutely.
Yeah.
I'm like anytime, anywhere. I'm like, pick my brain. Like I'm just a product of the people that I'm around. Like let's run it up, whatever you want to know.
And I'd say too, given your trajectory that you're on right now, like you're growing really fast. What are you hoping 2025 looks like for you?
I don't know. I think there's, it's good to have goals, and I for sure have goals. Sometimes I get too overwhelmed thinking at the big picture. And so what me and my team, like they'll hear me say it a ton, and some people hate it, some people love it. But for me, my motto is just like, just one more, like just one more, whether like on the hard days, that's like just one more door. That's like, or like on the average days, like just one more deal, right? Hunting for who's next. So it's like, what does the 2025 season looks like? It's like, only God knows. For me, all I'm going to do is I'm going to go get one more recruit. I'm going to go provide value to one more person's life. I'm going to go get one more sale. And I'm just going to put everything that I have on the table, because that way, when I look back at the end of the year, it's like, okay, Did I hit my goals? Maybe. But did I give everything that I had from day one? Absolutely. Right? Where I'm running meetings all day. I'm planning this, doing this, doing this. It's like there's nowhere that like is just filled with like a hangout second. Like it's always intentional. Where it's like there's no way that I don't go out and succeed. Now, what that looks like on a fiscal scale or what that looks like on a number scale, I mean, yeah, I have goals. I think it'd be really incredible to do 2,500 accounts. I think that would be also super, super possible. And with the way that recruiting works, I mean, who knows? That could turn into 5 just like that.
Yeah.
You turn into 5,000 accounts and you just have no idea. All you can do is just put in the effort and then just let God do its thing.
Yeah.
And you just
Surrender.
Yeah, exactly. Surrender, which is super hard to do sometimes when things aren't going your way.
Yeah.
Yeah, surrendering is huge. It's funny enough that my this is getting so vulnerable. I don't even know, but my family cat, who was like 14 years old, passed away yesterday.
Oh shoot, man.
And it was horrible. Like it sucked.
Yeah.
And I remember like thinking, I'm like talking to my mom. I'm like, I never want to get a cat ever again. Cause I'm like, I don't ever want to go through this.
Yeah.
And then I'm literally like, relax, release. And I'm like, surrender, like all these like things that you teach. And it's like it works, like it's not easy. Like it's not easy. Like that sucked, but it's like, that's the perfect way it's supposed to be. Yeah. Like it served its purpose. Like
accepting the unfolding of life.
Yeah. Yeah. See, you always got some wisdom stuff, dude, all the time. Like, Doug's always got those little one-liners. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Well, dude, I'm so inspired by you, Alek. I'm so grateful you came on, brother. Like it's great to hear your story. You're on a trajectory of, life-changing, to your point, impacting a lot of people around you. And I know a lot of people that spend time with you are better off because they did, and they're now clear on their goals, and you're changing lives, and got a lot of love for you. And, you're an OG Alchemy member, and I'm just stoked for the future, brother. So thanks for coming on.
Thank you, Doug. Means a lot.
Big love, man.
Thank you.